There is a moment in every person's journey toward true strength when they discover the most liberating truth of all. The permission they have been seeking from others was never theirs to give. The power they have been waiting to receive already flows through them, has always flowed through them, dormant only because they believed it required external authorization to awaken. I have walked among those who command armies, yet still seek approval from their subordinates, witnessed leaders who control vast resources while begging for validation from those they serve, and observed individuals with profound wisdom who remain silent until someone grants them permission to speak. The tragedy is not that they lack power. The tragedy is that they have convinced themselves their power requires someone else's signature to become real. Power begins the moment you stop seeking permission, because permission seeking is the voluntary surrender of the very authority you wish to claim. Every request for approval is an unconscious declaration that your judgment is insufficient, your wisdom inadequate, your right to act dependent on another's consent. In that single gesture of deference, you transform yourself from sovereign to supplicant, from creator to consumer of others' decisions. Today, I speak of the profound transformation that occurs when you recognize that the only permission you have ever needed was your own, and that this permission was never something to be earned, but something to be claimed through the simple act of claiming it. The compulsion to seek permission is not natural, it is learned, cultivated through years of conditioning that transforms sovereign beings into approval-seeking creatures who mistake external validation for internal worth. This conditioning begins early and runs deep, creating psychological patterns that persist long after the original authorities have lost their relevance. From childhood, you are taught that your impulses require approval before expression. Your desires need endorsement before pursuit. Your thoughts must pass through external filters before they can be considered valid. Parents, teachers, institutions, and social systems all participate in this training, each reinforcing the message that your inner authority is insufficient for navigating life's complexities. The intention is often protective, but the effect is disempowering. This learned deference creates what psychologists call an external locus of control, the belief that your life's direction depends primarily on forces outside yourself. When you operate from this external locus, you naturally seek permission because you have been conditioned to believe that others possess superior judgment about your choices, better insight into your needs, and greater authority over your destiny than you do. The psychological architecture of permission seeking involves several interconnected elements. First is the internalized authority figure, the mental representation of all the people whose approval you learned to seek, now operating as an internal committee that must approve your actions before you feel comfortable taking them. Second is the fear of independent judgment, the anxiety that arises when you must make decisions without external guidance or confirmation. Third is the addiction to external validation, the dependency on others' positive responses to feel confident about your choices. These elements create a self-reinforcing cycle. The more you seek permission, the less you trust your own judgment. The less you trust your judgment, the more you need external confirmation. The more you depend on external confirmation, the weaker your internal authority becomes. Over time, this cycle can leave you feeling powerless, even in situations where you possess all the resources and capabilities needed to act decisively. The tragedy deepens when you realize that most permission givers are themselves operating from their own fears, limitations, and conditioning. When you ask others for permission, you are often asking people who have never done what you want to do, never faced what you're facing, and never developed the specific capabilities you possess. You are seeking authorization from those who may be even less qualified to make decisions about your life than you are. This dynamic is particularly insidious in professional environments, where hierarchical structures seem to legitimize permission-seeking behavior. You may find yourself asking supervisors for approval to pursue opportunities that only you understand, seeking committee consent for innovations that committees are structurally incapable of evaluating, or waiting for organizational permission to solve problems that organizations created through their own limitations. The cost of this learned helplessness extends far beyond missed opportunities or delayed actions. It fundamentally alters your relationship with your own capacities, teaching you to distrust the very instincts, insights, and creative impulses that make you unique. You learn to edit yourself before expressing, to doubt yourself before acting, to seek confirmation before trusting your own experience. In doing so, you gradually disconnect from the internal guidance system that was meant to navigate your unique path through existence. When you seek permission, you engage in a complex psychological transaction that extends far beyond the surface request for approval. You volunteer to place someone else in a position of authority over your life, temporarily elevating their judgment above your own, and accepting that their decision about your choices carries more weight than your own assessment of your needs, capabilities, and circumstances. This transaction involves what might be called authority displacement, the unconscious transfer of decision-making power from your internal wisdom to external sources. The person whose permission you seek may not want this authority, may not be qualified to exercise it wisely, and may not understand the full implications of their response. Yet by seeking their permission, you make them responsible for outcomes that only you will fully experience. The psychology becomes more complex when you consider that permission-seeking often serves hidden functions beyond the obvious request for approval. It can be a way of avoiding responsibility. If someone else gives you permission and things go wrong, you can blame their judgment rather than accepting accountability for your choice to follow it. It can be a method of managing anxiety. The fear of making mistakes feels less overwhelming when someone else has endorsed your actions. It can be a strategy for maintaining relationships. Seeking someone's permission can feel like including them in your decision-making process, even when their input isn't genuinely needed. These hidden functions explain why permission-seeking can become addictive. Each successful request for approval provides temporary relief from anxiety, responsibility, and isolation. But like all addictions, the relief is short-lived and requires increasing doses to maintain the same effect. You may find yourself seeking permission for progressively smaller decisions, needing approval from more and more people, or returning repeatedly to the same authorities for reassurance about choices you have already made. The addiction is maintained by what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. Sometimes people give you the permission you seek enthusiastically, sometimes reluctantly, and sometimes they refuse entirely. This unpredictable pattern creates a psychological dependency, similar to gambling addiction, where the uncertainty of the outcome makes the seeking behavior more compelling, rather than less. Perhaps most damaging is how permission-seeking affects your relationship with your own intuition and creative impulses. These internal signals often arise faster than you can process them through external approval systems. They may point you toward opportunities that others cannot see, solutions that others cannot imagine, or directions that others would not choose for themselves. When you consistently subject these impulses to external approval processes, you teach yourself to distrust the very capacities that make you most valuable and unique. The psychological research on self-empowerment reveals that individuals with strong internal authority demonstrate significantly higher levels of resilience, creativity, and life satisfaction than those who remain dependent on external validation. They recover more quickly from setbacks because they don't need to wait for others to tell them they can try again. They pursue opportunities more readily because they don't need committee approval for their initiative. They maintain their authenticity under pressure because their sense of self doesn't depend on others' ongoing approval. Conversely, those who remain trapped in permission-seeking patterns often experience what researchers call learned helplessness, the belief that their actions cannot significantly influence their outcomes. This learned helplessness becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, as people who don't believe in their own agency stop taking actions that would demonstrate their capability, thus reinforcing their belief in their own powerlessness. The transformation from permission seeker to self-authorized actor does not happen gradually. It occurs in a specific moment of recognition, when you suddenly understand that the authority you have been seeking outside yourself was always available within yourself. This moment of sovereign recognition is both simple and profound. You realize that your permission is the only permission you have ever actually needed. This recognition often comes during moments of crisis or opportunity, when external authorities are unavailable, unhelpful, or clearly less qualified than you to make the necessary decisions. You find yourself facing a situation that demands immediate action, and there is no one to ask, no committee to consult, no higher authority to defer to. In that moment of necessary self-reliance, you discover that you possess the judgment, courage, and capability to act decisively without external authorization. The recognition can be startling because it reveals how much power you had been giving away unnecessarily. You realize that most of the permissions you sought were not actually required. They were habits of deference that you had maintained long after they served any useful purpose. You understand that many of the authorities whose approval you craved were themselves operating from uncertainty, limitation, and their own need for validation. This sovereign recognition involves several simultaneous realizations. First, you understand that your judgment, while not infallible, is based on information and perspectives that no one else fully possesses. You know your values, capabilities, circumstances, and aspirations better than anyone else can. Second, you recognize that the consequences of your actions will be experienced primarily by you, making you the most motivated person to choose wisely. Third, you accept that making mistakes is part of learning and growth, not evidence of your unworthiness to make decisions. The moment of recognition also involves understanding the difference between seeking input and seeking permission. Seeking input means gathering information, perspectives, and advice to inform your decision-making while maintaining your authority to decide. Seeking permission means transferring decision-making authority to others and accepting their judgment as superior to your own. Input enhances your decision-making capacity. Permission-seeking diminishes it. With sovereign recognition comes the understanding that authentic power is never given. It is claimed, exercised, and demonstrated through consistent action, aligned with internal authority. The people you admire for their strength, creativity, and leadership are not those who waited for permission to express their gifts, but those who recognized their gifts and began expressing them, regardless of external approval. This recognition transforms your relationship with authority from vertical to horizontal. Instead of seeking authorities above you whose approval you need, you begin to recognize authorities around you whose wisdom you can learn from without surrendering your own decision-making power. You can appreciate others' expertise, experience, and insights, while maintaining your responsibility for choosing how to apply their input to your unique circumstances. The transformation also involves accepting the loneliness that comes with self-authorization. When you stop seeking permission, you lose the comfort of shared responsibility for your choices. You can no longer blame others when things go wrong, or credit others when things go right. This loneliness is the price of authentic power. The recognition that your life is ultimately your responsibility. Your choices are ultimately yours to make, and your authority is ultimately yours to claim or surrender. The concept of internal authority has deep roots in philosophical tradition, from ancient Stoicism to modern existentialism, all recognizing that authentic power emerges from within rather than being granted from without. These philosophical frameworks provide understanding of why permission-seeking undermines genuine strength and how self-authorization creates the foundation for meaningful action. Nietzsche's concept of the will to power is often misunderstood as the desire to dominate others, but it actually refers to the drive to express your authentic nature without requiring external validation or permission. The will to power is the courage to assert your values, pursue your vision, and create meaning according to your own understanding, rather than conforming to others' expectations or seeking their approval. It is the recognition that your existence requires no justification beyond your own commitment to living authentically. The Stoic philosophers understood that true freedom comes from recognizing what is within your control versus what is outside it, and that seeking permission places your power in the category of things outside your control. When you need others' approval to act, your capacity for action becomes dependent on their moods, availability, understanding, and willingness to engage with your requests. The Stoic sage acts according to internal principles and accepts external responses without allowing them to determine future choices. Existential philosophy contributes the understanding that you are condemned to be free, that the responsibility for defining your life's meaning and direction cannot be delegated to others without surrendering your authentic humanity. From an existential perspective, seeking permission is a form of bad faith, an attempt to escape the anxiety of freedom by pretending that others can make your fundamental choices for you. The philosophical tradition of self-reliance, exemplified by thinkers like Ralph Waldo Emerson, recognizes that conformity to external authorities diminishes your capacity to contribute your unique gifts to the world. When you consistently seek permission before acting, you train yourself to express only what others approve of, rather than what your authentic nature wants to create. This diminishes not only your own experience but also the world's access to your distinctive perspective and capabilities. Buddhist philosophy offers the concept of taking refuge in yourself, recognizing that external authorities, no matter how wise or well-intentioned, cannot provide the inner stability and guidance that must come from your own developed wisdom and compassion. While teachers and guides can point toward truth, the actual realization and application of that truth must emerge from your own direct experience and understanding. These philosophical frameworks converge on a crucial insight: that authentic authority cannot be borrowed, inherited, or granted. It must be developed through the practice of making decisions, accepting consequences, learning from experience, and gradually building trust in your own capacity for wise action. Permission-seeking short-circuits this development process by substituting others' judgment for your own growth and discernment. The philosophy of internal authority also recognizes that self-authorization is not solipsistic or antisocial. Operating from internal authority allows you to engage with others more genuinely because you are not seeking to use them for validation or approval. You can offer your authentic self, listen to their authentic responses, and engage in genuine dialogue rather than manipulation disguised as consultation. Internal authority creates the foundation for what philosophers call authentic relationship, connections based on mutual recognition of each other's sovereignty, rather than hierarchical arrangements where one person seeks permission from another. When both parties operate from internal authority, they can offer each other input, support, and companionship, without either trying to control or be controlled by the other. Transitioning from permission-seeking to self-authorization requires deliberate practice, as the habits of deference run deep, and the fears that maintain them are often unconscious. The practice involves both inner work to develop trust in your own judgment, and outer work to demonstrate that trust through increasingly autonomous action. The foundation of self-authorization practice is developing what psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to handle challenges, make good decisions, and achieve your goals through your own efforts. This belief cannot be created through positive thinking alone. It must be built through actual experiences of successfully navigating difficulties, making decisions, and learning from both successes and failures. Begin with small exercises in decision-making, without seeking permission. Choose what to wear, what to eat, how to spend your free time, or which route to take to familiar destinations, without consulting others or seeking their approval. These minor choices may seem insignificant, but they begin to rebuild your connection to your own preferences and trust in your own judgment. Gradually expand the scope of your independent decision-making to include choices with greater consequences: how to handle conflicts, which opportunities to pursue, how to allocate your time and energy, or what boundaries to maintain in relationships. Each successful navigation of these choices without seeking permission builds confidence in your capacity for self-direction. Practice distinguishing between seeking input and seeking permission. When you want others' perspectives, ask for their thoughts, experiences, and advice, while making it clear that you will make the final decision. This allows you to benefit from others' wisdom without surrendering your authority or making them responsible for your choices. Develop comfort with making decisions based on incomplete information, recognizing that waiting for perfect clarity or unanimous approval is often a form of procrastination disguised as prudence. Most important decisions must be made with partial information and uncertain outcomes. The capacity to act decisively despite uncertainty is a core component of authentic authority. Learn to sit with the discomfort of others' disapproval without immediately seeking to repair their opinion through explanation, justification, or modification of your choices. Not everyone will approve of your decisions, and this disapproval does not indicate that your decisions were wrong. Practice maintaining your choices while remaining open to others' perspectives without feeling compelled to change course every time someone disagrees. Cultivate what might be called decision hygiene, the practice of making choices based on your values, circumstances, and goals, rather than on others' expectations, reactions, or convenience. Before making significant decisions, check whether you are choosing based on what you genuinely believe is best, or on what you think others want you to choose. Develop a personal philosophy or set of principles that can guide your decision-making. When external authorities are unavailable or conflicting, these principles should reflect your deepest values and can serve as an internal compass when you must navigate without external guidance. Having clear principles makes self-authorization easier because you have internal criteria for evaluating options. Practice accepting responsibility for your choices without becoming paralyzed by the weight of that responsibility. Understanding that you are accountable for your decisions can be empowering rather than overwhelming when you recognize that this accountability comes with the freedom to shape your life according to your own vision rather than living according to others' plans for you. The path I walked required me to act without permission from those who could never understand my choices, to make decisions that would be judged by people who could never access my complete reasoning, and to accept responsibility for outcomes that would affect not just myself but countless others who remained unaware of the forces I was navigating. In learning to operate without permission, I discovered the true nature of strength, not the power to control others, but the power to control my own responses to whatever circumstances arose. I learned that the permission I had been seeking was not actually permission to act, but permission to trust myself. The authority I thought I needed from others was actually the authority I needed to claim from my own deepest wisdom. The approval I craved was ultimately the approval I needed to give to my own authentic choices, regardless of how others might judge them. Your modern world has created unprecedented systems for seeking permission. Forms to fill out, committees to consult, social media platforms to gauge approval, and endless opportunities to defer your authority to others who may have no genuine investment in your success or understanding of your unique circumstances. These systems can be useful for coordination and collective decision-making, but they become destructive when you use them to avoid the responsibility of thinking, choosing, and acting from your own center. Remember that the people whose permission you seek are often themselves trapped in permission-seeking patterns, making their approval a poor foundation for your own authority. The supervisor who seems so confident may be constantly seeking approval from their own supervisors. The friend whose validation you crave may be desperate for your validation in return. The family member whose blessing you need may be living according to their own parents' unfulfilled dreams rather than their own authentic vision. The moment you recognize this, you understand that seeking permission is often seeking permission from other permission seekers, a circular dependency that keeps everyone trapped in external validation cycles while no one claims the internal authority that could break the pattern. Your decision to stop seeking permission not only liberates you, but potentially liberates others by demonstrating that self-authorization is possible and powerful. Power begins the moment you stop seeking permission, because that is the moment you recognize that the capacity to choose, act, and create was always yours. It was never actually dependent on others' approval, understanding, or cooperation. While their input, support, and collaboration can enhance your effectiveness, their permission was never required for your authenticity. This recognition brings both tremendous freedom and significant responsibility. You are free to pursue your genuine aspirations, express your authentic nature, and create according to your own vision. But you are also responsible for the consequences of these choices, accountable for their effects on others, and required to navigate without the comfort of shared blame when things don't go as planned. The power that emerges from self-authorization is different from the power that comes from external authority. External authority is granted and can be revoked. Internal authority is claimed and can only be surrendered voluntarily. External authority depends on others' recognition. Internal authority generates its own recognition through consistent demonstration of capability and integrity. External authority often requires maintaining others' approval. Internal authority allows you to maintain your authenticity regardless of others' responses. Learn to distinguish between collaboration and permission seeking, between seeking wisdom and seeking approval, between being responsive to others and being controlled by them. The strongest leaders, most creative artists, and most effective change makers in history were those who operated from internal authority while remaining open to input, guidance, and collaboration from others. Your permission to live authentically, pursue your vision, express your truth, and create according to your own understanding has been available to you since the moment you became capable of conscious choice. No authority external to you has the right or the ability to grant or withhold this permission, because it was never theirs to control. It belongs to you by virtue of your existence as a conscious being, capable of choice. In claiming this permission, you join the ranks of those who shape reality, rather than merely responding to it, who create culture rather than merely consuming it, who lead through example rather than waiting for someone else to show them the way. Your self-authorization becomes permission for others to claim their own authority, creating ripples of empowerment that extend far beyond your individual choices. The moment is always now. The permission you seek is always yours to give. The power you need is always already present, waiting only for your recognition and activation. Stop seeking permission and start being the authority your life has been waiting for. Power begins the moment you stop seeking permission. That moment is this moment, if you choose to claim it. The choice, as always, is yours to make, and that is precisely the point. The power was always yours. The permission was always yours to give. The authority was always yours to claim. Claim it now.